Hello and welcome back to An Old Man Watches, and today I'm going to be talking about the cheapy 1988 action offering The Firing Line. And our main character for the film is Mark Harden, an American military advisor working in Central America, and non-specific Central American nation. Thanks to Harden's strategic and tactical nous, the film begins with government troops winning a significant victory over rebel forces. One solitary female rebel escapes, and two other rebels are captured, but the guerrilla unit is otherwise annihilated by the government forces. And as soon as the problematically idealistic American advisor is off the scene, those two rebel prisoners quickly join the list of the dead, both murdered by the government. Now, Harden himself is oblivious to this, of course, confidently anticipating that the rebel leaders will soon face trial for his alleged crimes. When a cynical journalist laughs at this fantasy, accurately claiming that the man is already dead, Harden sets out to discover if this is true. A decision that, of course, puts him on the wrong side of the government that he was just helping. And we know how they treat their enemies. So Harden is soon running for his life, dragging along an attractive American woman who gets caught in the crossfire. Will the two of them end up in the jungle, fighting alongside the very guerrillas that Harden previously sought to stamp out? Will they triumph against the oppressive government junta? Will they engage in a perfunctory romance based on little more than being on screen together for some time? The answer to all three of these questions should be pretty obvious if you've ever seen a movie before. So the 70s and 80s were a prime time for movie making in the Philippines, as independent US productions flocked to the islands for the cheap labour and evocative landscapes. The Philippines would often double for Central America, as it does here, but also for Vietnam. Alas, those independent production companies probably also came for the lack of safety provisions and the opportunities to cut costs by exploiting their workers. On the upside, though, these foreign productions also helped drive the local film industry. And Yun Gallardo was a Filipino director who made over 50 films in his near 30-year career, The Firing Line actually being his last movie. So if he'd made 50 films before this one, he must have had a pretty good idea of what he was doing, right? Yeah. He did. Unfortunately, what he was doing was churning out as many movies as possible, as cheaply as possible. He mostly worked for Silver Star, a production company notorious for extremely low-budget action films with very low production values, which is exactly what The Firing Line is. Still, if you've watched many of these videos, you probably know that a movie being bad is rarely a barrier for me having things to say about it. So let's find out what there is to say about this one. So Gallardo was a Filipino, but he was making movies with an eye to international release. So that meant adopting an anglicised screen name, usually Jim Goldman or John Gale, and casting American actors in the lead roles of his films. So it is that The Firing Line stars, if one uses the term loosely, Reb Brown and Shannon Tweed. Now, Brown was best known for playing the lead role in 1983's schlocky, low-budget science fiction fantasy film Yor, The Hunter from the Future, which throughout the rest of the decade he parlayed into a lot of leading roles in schlocky, low-budget science fiction and action films. The role I mostly fondly remember him for, though, is playing Captain America in two 1979 TV movies. Not, I hasten to add, because the films were good, they're not, but because they were naff in exactly the right kind of way for me to enjoy them. Tweed, meanwhile, was best known for taking her clothes off. She was a former Playboy Playmate of the Year, and her prominent placement in much of The Firing Line's marketing suggests that the filmmakers, probably rightly, judged her much more likely to draw video store eyeballs than poor old Reb. Anyone watching this movie in the hope of some skin will be disappointed, however, as there's no nudity. Instead, Tweed, who is a better actor than her later softcore extravaganza career would indicate, is lumbered with being simply the screechy, whiny female sidekick. I can't help but feel the movie would be significantly improved if they'd instead had her character be a special operations badass like Mark Harden, but no such luck. Now, as I referred to earlier, the Firing Line begins with a group of guerrillas being ambushed by overwhelming forces and all but annihilated. This is a scene shot in real jungle using real explosions with footage of real military equipment. Now, starting in media res can be an effective narrative tool to hit the ground running, and I can empathise with the desire to have a big action set piece to give your audience some excitement before you get into the inevitable plot exposition that will slow the pace down. But these are strategies that need to be used with care and thought to be effective, and there's no evidence that any more thought than, let's start with some explosions, because explosions are exciting, has gone into this scene. You see, there's literally no dialogue or anything else to give you context to these scenes. They're just nameless extras running around through trees and dying whenever there's an explosion remotely nearby to them. We don't know who they are or why they are fighting, or if any of them are actually important to the film's narrative. The answer's not really. And that makes it very hard to care about anything that's happening. It's got no context. Even the fact that they are guerrillas must be inferred from their mismatched outfits, mixture of male and female troops, and lack of heavy equipment. And the scene, despite the fact that it is in a real jungle with real equipment, is not sufficiently well executed to be exciting without that context. So it's just like empty spectacle that's not all that spectacular. Now, picking on a low-budget film simply for lacking the technical quality of a big-budget action movie smacks a bit of going for low-hanging fruit. It's hardly fair to expect a mass-produced cheapie to have the visual glamour of a tentpole Hollywood release, any more than it is fair to expect Reb Brown to have the on-screen presence and charisma of a Schwarzenegger or Stallone, no matter how much the movie he's in is clearly inspired by the films of those men. If he was a Schwarzenegger or Stallone, he would be in a better film. But there are times when a film does something so badly that it no longer becomes a case of understandable due to the lack of resources and moves quite clearly into so egregiously bad that it deserves mention. And so it is here with the film's editing, which is frankly atrocious to the point of unintentional comedy. How bad is it? Well, here's a belated hint to the filmmakers, 30-odd years after they made the movie. If you choose to show a character's face while we can hear them talking, you should choose a shot where their lips are actually moving. Just a thought. The Firing Line has a lot of explosions, but the movie itself is a damp squib and definitely fails to ignite. Next time, the 1990 neo-noir gangster film King of New York, starring Christopher Walken. But that's next time. Until then, thanks for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it.